Can you believe we started Interview Boss in 2021?
Not really. It's insane. That's a lot of episodes and a lot of hours of talking.
Oh my gosh, it is. And if you're scrolling through all of our episodes, you might scroll straight past something that you really, really needed.
Yes, we're always getting messages from people asking us to do an episode on something, and I'm like, we already have.
So we've put together playlists to help you find the episodes that are exactly what you need, suited to your situation.
They're all categorized. If you're applying for jobs, we have episodes about resumes, cover letters, job ads. If you've been offered your dream job, we have episodes on resigning, exit interviews, and how to impress at your new company.
And we even have a very special playlist that's very popular for if you have an interview coming up immediately and you need just our most recommended hard-hitting episodes between now and then.
For all our last-minute listeners. It's all there for you. You can browse by category and check out all the playlists at interviewboss.com.au/podcast.
And I just think take the philosophy of engage meaningfully, share valuable insights and updates. If you love an article, share the link, tell people why you loved it. Like just, share information that you think is genuinely going to help people. If you see people in their update share something, cheer them from the sidelines, congratulate them.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Interview Boss. My name's Emma. I'm a third-year journalism student who's teamed up with my sister to give you advice, inspiration and support when you're looking for a new job. Sarah is a HR and recruitment professional, and together we're excited to give you guys all the tips, tricks and behind-the-scenes knowledge to help you in your career.
Hey Em, and hello everybody. Today we're talking all things LinkedIn, and to help us with that, we've brought in the expert. Karen Hollenbach is an independent LinkedIn specialist trainer and the founding director of Think Bespoke. With over 10 years LinkedIn training and LinkedIn profile writing experience in Australia, Karen was rated as Asia Pacific's top 10 LinkedIn experts in 2019. So Karen, thank you very much for joining us today. Can you give us a bit of a backstory on your career and how you got where you are now?
Well, I began as a marketing graduate and decided that I would progress my marketing career by starting in a sales role. So I did that and climbed the corporate ladder working for an amazing organisation called Diageo Australia. At the time it was called Guinness UDV, which people would know about that brand. So I'd call myself a corporate escapee because towards the end of my tenure with Diageo, I had actually had 2 children. So I went out on maternity leave twice, and it was while I was on mat leave the second time that I made the decision to retrain as a secondary teacher, and it had a lot to do with the feeling that I couldn't have it all and I needed to really think about how I turned up as a parent. And so through that, I retrained and was offered a redundancy at the end of that. And because I'd been with the organisation for such a long time, that brought me breathing space to finish my studies and really think about how I was going to transition into that next phase of my career. And interestingly, even though, 11 years on from that, I now have a successful educational consultancy specialising in LinkedIn, at the time, running my own business was not a goal at all. As a mother of 2 young children, I wanted to show up in all areas of my life. I love working. I really enjoy contributing, and I've always been quite ambitious in my career. So I was offered an executive outplacement and I worked with Right Management, and at the time they introduced me to LinkedIn. So I just thought it would be the tool that would enable me to find that next job. As I really thought long and hard and went through their executive program for outplacement, I really decided that I was going to have a go at probably what's called a portfolio career now. It has sort of an actual term where you can do a few different things. At the time, it didn't. So I finished my studies. I went on to work briefly as a secondary teacher, but I moved very, very quickly into corporate training. So I was employed by a training organisation, and then I really built my confidence as a business owner. Started off as a resume writer and LinkedIn profile writer, which is why I love what you guys are doing. There was nothing like this available when I sort of first started traversing career decisions or started doing my marketing degree or graduating from my marketing degree at RMIT. So I established my business and really used LinkedIn to nurture my network, raise my profile, and I'm sure we'll talk about a lot of how others can do that today. And over time, I really built this reputation. I was originally supporting people who are in active job search, and we still do, but really within about probably 3 years or so of establishing Think Bespoke, which started off as bespoke professional resumes, I think is worth sharing with you both. But as I got sort of big girl about my business and took it a little bit more seriously, a lot of my colleagues who had worked in corporate and were sort of watching my journey asked me to do for them what I was doing with my personal brand on LinkedIn. So I really embraced the concept of thought leadership and niching in my subject matter expertise. And as a content marketer, so I'm a trained marketer. That was my undergraduate degree. I did my graduate diploma in secondary teaching. So because I had that strategic marketing experience, I really worked out how to engage meaningfully with my community to sort of build my brand. And I love that I looked through, I was saying before, your podcast episodes, I love that you're talking about storytelling and that you're really sharing with people a sense of how you really need to turn up as a career professional, especially online. So I think timing's everything. And I like to say to people, it took me 10 years to become an overnight success. In 2018, I was ranked in the top 20 LinkedIn experts in Asia Pacific, and in 2019, I was ranked in the top 10. I think I landed as number 6. Importantly, while I love peer reviews and I'm very proud of that sort of expert status, what's really important is sort of referring happy clients. So Think Bespoke celebrated 10 years of business last year. We became a company in 2015. I lead a collective of freelancers. So importantly, motherhood has still absolutely maintained a priority, and I didn't laugh during COVID, but I thought it was very interesting to see people adjust to the home office environment, because for people like me, it was really embracing a culture that I have nurtured since taking that outplacement and really re-engineering my career so I could turn up meaningfully in all areas of my life. So I love that. I love the sort of concept of your podcast and what you're doing to really enable people to think about how they're being successful in their career and all the sort of nuances of the tools that they need to use, because I think it's really overwhelming for people to know where to start. So hopefully today I'll be adding some tips from a LinkedIn perspective.
Yeah, I really love that story. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, wow. Congratulations. That was a career story and a half.
Well,
amazing.
You've got to take control of the sort of the life you want to live for yourself and you want to create for yourself. And that sounds like a quote that we'd all engage with on Instagram, but how you actually do that is really different for every single person. And for me, it meant, my career change took time too. From the point of making the decision to where I am now, it's been a whole lot of hard work.
Yeah, and I really enjoy how everything's kind of come together with your marketing background and the teaching, and you're actually leveraging all of those. It hasn't been a career change where you've left something behind. I'm sure you're using a lot of those skills and experience in, the business that you've built today. It's
a really interesting point in the context of story, and how you do present yourself on LinkedIn, because in many ways I felt I had left it behind, that I'd left this corporate life, and it wasn't until I started to get invited to guest speak. And one of my colleagues who invited me to speak to a global recruitment network, I sent my bio in, sort of one of the first times I had to send my bio in. He said, "Oh, Karen, that's not how I see you at all." And I asked him, I said, "Well, Glenn, how do you see me?" And he said, "Well, I really see you as someone that's come from the big end of town. You've worked with big brands, and now you're using that experience in marketing to leverage it for smaller business owners and career professionals." I said, "Thank you. You've just helped me rewrite my bio." And I've found often within my career, especially since establishing my business, that it's the wisdom of others, and it's really listening to what other people's perception of me or my skill set is that has really helped me position my personal brand. So you can have a view of what your skills are and being open to how people perceive you and where they think your strengths are is I think an asset and something that people should consider.
I love how the plan was never initially the LinkedIn thing, but you just sort of fell into it. I think I love when that happens. And what does your role as a LinkedIn expert involve?
Well, my niche is really content marketing, and from what that means for people listening is it's turning up as a subject matter expert to share all the things, all the questions that people have got about LinkedIn. And so I was never trained in content marketing as a marketing graduate. It was a concept that came to me, and it was around the time when I first established my business. And it was sort of said that if you had this approach of content marketing, that you would be really clear about the client communities that you serve, that you would share content, and that could be video, it could be podcasts, it could be blogs. For me, it was blogs. I wrote a blog every week for the first 5 years of my business, and that you will attract, acquire, and engage the community that you want online. Now, I thought, is that a joke? I just have to write blogs and people will sort of flock to me. And it didn't, nothing's a silver bullet in business, but my LinkedIn expertise now is really showing people how to get a very, very clear focus on who are the ideal clients that they serve, who are the ideal organisations who they'd like to work with, where do they want their career to go, whether that be as a job seeker or whether that be someone who's established their business. And it's making sure that the story they tell online and the way they present themselves on LinkedIn is really serving those communities, because I think what can happen is people can fall into the trap of comparing themselves to their peers and worrying about what people are thinking about them, whereas it's much more productive from a career progression point of view, I think, to be sort of focused on the prize and thinking about what you want to be known for and who you're trying to influence. And I think my expertise is also very much in that space of beginners. So I really like holding people's hand and showing them how to unlock all the free features of LinkedIn. My personal and organisational mission is to help people unlock their potential. I've worked hard on cultivating, who am I? What is it that's relevant to talk about? What's compelling? What's appealing? What's still 100% genuinely me and my story? So I get great pleasure through my LinkedIn expertise in really drawing people out, understanding what their superpowers are or where they would like to head, and then really showcasing that on LinkedIn so they can engage meaningfully with their current community, but also create opportunities for themselves. And I think that my niche is special because there's lots of very sophisticated and salesy transactional LinkedIn trainers out there, and I think they absolutely play a role. I'm not sort of disqualifying them as experts, but certainly my niche is to help people get out of their own way in lots of ways and embrace their online identity, because it's scary, right? I say to people, what you put online, you might as well put it on a billboard, because everyone
Definitely.
can see it, everyone's going to judge you. But how brave are you going to be?
Yeah, and it can hinder you, it can help you. There's a lot on the line with what you put out there. I guess for a bit of background, I love how you mentioned that you enjoy working with beginners. So on that note, I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn, but some of our audience don't have profiles, and Emma included doesn't have
Including
a LinkedIn
me.
profile.
It's been on my life admin list for about 6 months and I just keep forgetting to find the time. But after this episode, I will, because I'll have all the tips. So
That's right.
it's perfect.
Oh, yes. Can I ask you a question? I know you're asking me the questions.
Yeah.
What's the block? Why haven't you created that LinkedIn profile?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not usually on the receiving end of questions. I think probably because it feels a bit too advanced and corporate-y, and if you asked me to make an Instagram account, I'd be like, oh, easy. But LinkedIn just seems too professional, like I'm out of my depths, I think would be the answer. I've been just
That's
putting it
so
off.
interesting, because I just see you as so brave, as someone listening to that first sort of opening podcast of why you've got Interview Boss, why you've got the podcast. I sort of saw you as being incredibly brave, and I instantly kind of went over on LinkedIn and went, oh, I can't find you. That's
I'm hiding.
I wonder if there's intern opportunities, or that, who could I connect her with?
Yeah,
and there was no, I was like, oh, okay. And so I think that's really common. So I don't think I drew out a question thing. I think I asked you a question, but did you want me to share some tips for beginners and why they might have LinkedIn in the first place?
What is the platform? What's it used for? And why should you definitely get on there, Emma?
Yeah.
Yes, well, it's actually slightly older. It celebrates, I think, its 18th birthday on May the 5th this year. I was just reading some, 31 interesting stats about LinkedIn on a Hootsuite blog that I thought was pretty interesting. I was looking for user stats, but I thought that was quite interesting. So it's actually the oldest social media if you choose to classify it as social media. And I personally do not classify it as social media. So, Sarah, you would know this, that LinkedIn really established itself originally as a Rolodex. So the way it was set up and the way maybe some people find the user experience not as thrilling as Instagram and Facebook and other, we could talk about Clubhouse, we could talk about all the sort of moving pieces that exist in the social world of social media. So it was originally really set up as a Rolodex, a way of staying connected to all your professional community, but most importantly as a place to find a job or to find people to place in jobs. So it very much, its heartland started as a place for job search. So you can set up your LinkedIn profile. So originally you could set up your LinkedIn profile, people would post jobs, you could apply for the jobs. There's heaps of recruiters on there, there's lots of hiring managers on there. It's where most people will probably look you up. Now, other more social platforms, they'll absolutely look you up. And I heard your episode, heard the one around social media, and she was talking about Spotify and all the other places that people can find you. So it was originally set up as that place where you could find a job or people could look for you and your talents and your skills. It's evolved over time. And when Jeff Weiner, the previous CEO, took over LinkedIn, he really looked at it more from a content marketing point of view and a news point of view. So he really decided that he wanted LinkedIn to be the place where busy professionals across all industry niches would come to get their news. So of the millions of, I think there's a significant number of, I could give you the stat, it's something like 677 million LinkedIn users. There's between 12 and 15 million in Australia, and of those about 50% are active. There's a skew towards men versus women, so about 57% men versus women. We're seeing a rise of small business owners on LinkedIn, and it tends to be for professionals. However, LinkedIn's done a really big push in the last maybe 3 to 4 years to also encourage people like Emma to be on LinkedIn. And the reason it's doing that is, I'm going to be frank, it's from a data point of view. Like, it wants to get you on early and groom you. You know, the reason why McDonald's offers my 13-year-old child a $1 offer as he scoots past on his. However, there's huge benefits for people studying and also graduates. And the main one is that you can learn from industry experts. You've got instant access to thought leaders across all major industries across the world. The World Health Organization does LinkedIn Lives, informing people of what's happening with COVID. Scott Morrison, our Prime Minister, does LinkedIn articles sharing what's happening in the management of the world. Jacinda Ardern from New Zealand's on there. So there's lots of thought leaders publishing content. So it's become a place that you can curate your newsfeed. It's absolutely a place where you can also find a job. You can follow company pages. You can get to know their culture. It can prep you for when you go into job interviews. It can help you research particular organisations. I mean, I know there's a whole generation of people who really don't want to work for organisations who aren't taking their role as corporate citizens properly. So you can get a sense of the whole culture of the organisation. You can have a look at who works there. It's now become this, I like to call it a virtual library, that you can sort of walk down the corridor and pass amazingly interesting conversations. You can choose to engage in those conversations through the public newsfeed. You can privately message people. So it's become so much more than a place where you can find a job, but it's still at its core where lots of professional jobs are advertised, and that's from internships right through to CEOs. It goes all the way through.
Okay, you've convinced me.
So, Emma, when are you going to have your LinkedIn profile created by?
Tonight. Okay. You'll be the first person I connect with.
Oh, that excites me. That's very, very good. Good. What's compelling for you? What is appealing for you?
I think the connecting with industry professionals. I like that idea. Yeah.
Yeah, and people
do all the other stuff as
people
well.
do business with people and create job opportunities for people they know, like, and trust. So for me, because you say at the start of this podcast, you have a very clear sense of why you created the podcast, what you're doing, where you are at in your career. So as a natural connector and someone who likes to help people reach their full potential, I just automatically, if someone said, oh, do you know anyone that's looking for opportunities? That's how LinkedIn works. People flick each other's LinkedIn profiles. They send joint messages to each other and say, oh, hi, Emma, you mentioned that you're looking for opportunities in this. I'm introducing you to, and it's a private message. So it's not done really through email, and then you can check out that person's profile, they can check out yours, and so on.
Absolutely.
Incredible, yeah.
And on that note about jobs, I've noticed a lot more LinkedIn has actually enabled some job scraping, and I think that's because they're obviously trying to get more opportunities available up on LinkedIn, and so they're lifting them off other platforms. So that hasn't necessarily been posted directly to LinkedIn.
I haven't noticed that. That's really interesting. I'd expect that you would, but I haven't. That's very, very interesting. Yeah, they're pretty, let's say, proactive in terms of wanting to provide as much value as they can to keep people on the platform for as long as possible.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. If there's not enough jobs on there, people stop going there. So they've got kind of an Indeed, job search mentality, it looks like, at least for the time being.
Yeah, and it's a default notification as well. So your profile is really by default designed to be as a job seeker, and unless you tell the algorithm or the link, unless you tailor your LinkedIn experience, and this is the same for any platform, unless you take control of your settings, unless you tell the LinkedIn user experience why you're there, and I don't mean literally you fill in a form saying why you're there, but it's about how you engage with content. LinkedIn will by default just assume you're a job seeker, suggest jobs to you based on your profile, and that's great for some people, but for people who are not in active job search, like Emma, for example, it's confusing. And so really taking control of your newsfeed, making a decision about industry leaders who you want to follow is the way to get the most out of the platform. All free, which is
cool.
Good.
So we've convinced people why they should definitely make an account. So say we have created our account. What are the absolute basics, necessities, the very first pieces of information to put on there? If you're not going to do anything else, what are the first things that should go on?
I really feel a photo is one of the most important things. So I would never advocate a photo on your resume, and we can debate that. However, your LinkedIn profile is, LinkedIn is a virtual room, and your profile is you stepping into meaningful conversations. So there's stats from LinkedIn and various other authorities that say a profile with a photo gets 14 to 21 more views than one that doesn't. And then we sort of go into this idea of sort of optimizing your profile. So people are less likely to connect with you if you don't have a profile photo. You want to detail, there's different sections within the profile. So you definitely want to put your current employment or your current education if you're not employed. Even if you had a part-time job, that's completely acceptable. Maybe you've just done some voluntary experience, that's completely acceptable. And then there's this about section at the top, which is a bit of a game changer if you take it seriously. So for the sake of this conversation, it's kind of like your professional summary on your resume, but it can be so much more. So I really feel like if you've filled in your about section, you're giving people a strong sense of, well, who am I? What do I believe in? Am I studying at the moment? Pretty much you could cut and paste the script of what you say on your first podcast episode, Emma, and give people a sense, give people a sense of I'm here to learn, this is where I'm at in my studies and I'm keen to understand. If you've moved through 4 or 5 roles in your life or 3 to 4 roles, you can give a sort of a snapshot of the type of professional you are, the scope and breadth of the experience that you've had, and then you can list your experience. And I guess how much detail you write in your profile is really based on what your goals are for LinkedIn. So some people, you can just set up a basic profile. So you've got your headline and the default is to your current role. You can tailor that if you want to, but if you're really just there to learn and you're there to connect and reach out to people who you might already know or who you want to learn from, then just some basic information so people can say, A, is she real? B, why is she here? C, do we have any mutual connections? Because you wouldn't just start talking to some people do, but I would suggest that it's a more approachable, conversational appealing profile if you're giving people a sense of why you're there. And I like to think that subject matter experts and thought leaders, that people who are studying and graduates are in the strongest possible position to reach out and connect with leaders of industry, because they should be saying, look, I see you as a leader in the industry. I really want to stay up to date with the updates in your newsfeed. Thought I'd send you an invitation to connect. I don't know many good business leaders who wouldn't respond to that, which just puts you so on the front foot when you move into active job search.
Yeah, absolutely. Being connected with someone or, following the company, it gives you something to mention in your cover letter. Hey, I love that post that you did the other day. I've been watching your company culture. It can give you a huge leg up when you're starting to apply for jobs.
Yeah, definitely.
So now that we have the basics, and there might be some people out there listening who, they've created their profile a while ago, they've been on the platform, but they haven't done much with it. What can you do to take your profile and your experience to the next level?
Well, there's a few things you can do, and LinkedIn's always offering new features. So people may or may not still be able to access the pronounce your name feature, which was available on your profile a little while back. I think it's dropped off. You'll find features are beta tested and A/B tested. You could tailor your headline. You could look at the featured section of your profile, which allows you to drop in links, posts, articles, and external links and PDF documents. So if there's particular projects that you've worked on, you could have a go at, I call this idea of tending to your LinkedIn garden. If you have worked in some roles, you could request recommendations from people quite senior that you've worked with, and that can publicly be displayed on your profile. So it's kind of like a Google review for you, right? You can say anything you want about yourself on your profile, but to have a leader of a particular organisation give you a recommendation is as powerful as a referee in a resume or a testimonial for a business owner. You could also curate your skills. So you could have a real look at your skills and say, well, I can list up to 50 skills. Are they relevant? You could ask your connections to endorse you for those skills, to say, look, don't just take my word for it. 99 other people have endorsed me for LinkedIn training. And then the game changer with LinkedIn, when you really start to get value from it, is to curate your newsfeed. So you want to go into the main newsfeed. You want to decide the organisations who you're going to follow, the people you're going to follow. You might, you can follow hashtags, so you can choose the hashtags that you wish to follow. Be careful with that one, because I can go and look at a LinkedIn profile and see all of the hashtags you're following. So if you've got some sort of fetish interest and happen to be following it on LinkedIn, I'd say it's probably not the spot to do that. Do that over on Instagram. So more the professional hashtags you can be following. So you can get into some really interesting conversations, or you can just have some interesting stuff come through your news feed. And the curation of the news feed is the game changer, because otherwise LinkedIn's just going to think, it's just going to treat you like a job seeker, which could be fine, but also the pre-job seeking, or Emma, in your situation, or people even in active job search, you actually want to get more than just the job notifications. You want to get the industry news and the things that are going on. And then we can talk about networking and posting.
Yeah.
They're things that people can also think about. Well, networking is an interesting one. So I believe you should connect with everyone you know. So what I mean by that is everyone you went to school with, sport, family, friends, everybody. And it's back to that idea that people create job opportunities for people who they know, like, and trust. So, if I think of some of the biggest opportunities I've been invited to, they're old bosses that have watched my journey for years, never engaged in any of my content, but he actively, an old boss just actively recommends me all the time, which is lovely, and I really appreciate it. So the networking piece is making sure you're sending tailored invitations to connect for everyone that you know. And if people tend to access their LinkedIn profiles from their phone, be really careful with this one, because if you hit connect from your phone, it just sends them a templated message, which some people will not accept invitations to connect if you haven't bothered to personalise the message. So you can just click to the right-hand side. Depending on so Emma, for someone like you who's just set up their profile and doesn't have many connections, LinkedIn's going to make it really hard for you to send invitations to connect to people. But once you've started to get more connections and LinkedIn trusts you more, sounds weird, doesn't it? Like it's a real person. It's not, let's be clear. You will then find it easier, and you'll just get used to how to send personalised invitations to connect. But in the early days, that's a bit more difficult. let's say you're going to a professional development event, or you've got particular conferences or people that you just really, really love and read and listen to. You know, maybe people listening have not connected with you, Sarah, on LinkedIn. I don't know what your connection criteria is. Emma will have a LinkedIn profile after tonight. So it's starting conversations. So if there's people that you're watching, or if people that are, I'll give you an example. I went to an International Women's Day lunch last week. Emma Alberici, who's an ex-ABC news journalist, spoke virtually, and she was incredible. She was amazing. And so I sent her an invitation to connect and just said, thank you so much. I really valued your wise words. And she accepted my invitations. Thank you very much, Karen. That's it. So you just need to reach out to people from a networking point of view that you're genuinely had a conversation with, or been in the room with, or have listened to, or read, or, you know, and that's a really great way for you to build your network over time. So that's sort of the networking element, and also accepting invitations to connect. So I really want to encourage people to be open to accepting invitations to connect from people they don't know.
That's what I was, going to ask. What's the etiquette?
Well,
can you connect with people that you don't know? Are people going to find that weird? What's the story?
I think some people do find it weird, and I'm on a bit of a mission to encourage people to think about the introverts of this world, the sort of people who are more digitally savvy, and it just feels really normal for them to connect in that way. And so I would encourage you to have a connection criteria. So which strangers will I accept invitations to connect from? I know that sounds strange. So it's not an invitation to go out for dinner. It's not a job opportunity. You know, it's just someone saying, can I add you to my network? Now, of the 10 people that invite me to connect, there might be 1 or 2 that are salesy and do a follow-up email and they're annoying, and I either ignore them or just remove them as a connection. But of the other 8, they're normally people who want to learn from me. They're people who have my name's been recommended to them. They're friends of friends. They're people that maybe listen to me on a podcast and just want to reach out. And so I just believe in sort of, I'm a glasses half full kind of person. So if someone reaches out to me, there's going to be a reason, and you just accept the invitation to connect if that's within your connection criteria, and I'll give you a sense of what that might be. And then you can send a follow-up message if they look like someone that you would like to get into a conversation with, or you do nothing. You know, you just accept the invitation to connect. And then if the information's coming through their newsfeed that you think, oh, this is a bit boring, I don't really want this in my newsfeed, you can choose to unfollow that person, and they're not going to get a notification saying, Emma hates your updates. And that doesn't happen. You're still connected to them, but you don't have to follow their updates in your newsfeed. So a connection criteria might look like something: they operate in a country that I do business with or that I work in, they are in an industry that is of interest to me, or I find interesting, or I'm curious to know more about. They have a headshot photo. They look like a real person. I err on the side of openness, and people will reveal themselves extremely quickly if they have, you know, if they've got confused and they thought they were on Tinder, which can happen occasionally too. It's a numbers game, right? So there's ways to protect yourself in accepting those invitations to connect. So you can just block, remove the connection if there's any bad behaviour, or you report them, which I actively do.
Yeah. If
there's someone sort of conducts themselves inappropriately, which rarely happens, I will be the first person to block them and report them.
Yeah. It's so funny you call that, you know, connection criteria, because I think I've had that for a while now. I just didn't ever have a name for it. You know, when you're recruiting certain roles, you tend to get a lot of people trying to connect with you. And I kind of said, if you're in a country that we don't operate in, and you're in a completely different industry, I don't think I'm going to be able to help you, and I don't think you're going to be able to help me, and there's not a match there. But if there was the location or the industry match, yeah, that's kind of how I would decide to connect with someone, even if I didn't know.
That's good. Yeah. And it's powerful because it's back to that step of taking control of this tool for your goals. And I have to say that if there's anyone listening who doesn't accept invitations to connect from recruiters, can you please change that plan of attack? I don't know how you feel, Sarah, but I get a lot of people who move into active job search say to me, oh, yeah, I've never really accepted invitations to connect from recruiters. And I say to them, well, and how's that feeling now? You know, do you regret that decision? Because there's this feeling, oh, recruiters are going to want something. I'm like, you need recruiters in your network. You need to have people who are connected with lots of people in your network, because you just never know if you want to offer help to someone, or you need help, or you're on a project and you're looking for a particular type of resource. Your LinkedIn network is the network you should be tapping into.
Yeah, and if you're connected with people like a recruiter who happens to have a huge amount of connections, you then get access as a second level connection to view all those other people's profiles. And that's something that can be really handy if you're trying to research a company and, your friendly neighborhood recruiter has meant that you can now view those profiles because they are that intermediary for you.
Absolutely, and that's a game changer. So anyone who's listening who doesn't know, this idea of a second degree connection is, depending on your settings, because I will only show you mutual connections, I lock a lot of my settings down and you can't see my whole network. But some people might leave that open, or you can certainly see mutual connections. And so if I ever see that someone hasn't locked that down and they're in a particularly interesting industry that I'd like to research, the first thing I do is just trawl through all of their connections and have a look at if there's anyone. And then I would say, let's say they're Sarah's connections, I would say, Sarah, I see that you're connected to, how do you know them? And I will get off LinkedIn pretty quickly in that situation. Like, I won't use LinkedIn as the tool to connect me. I will use the relationship. That not use sounds like the wrong word, but I will talk to the person on the phone, pick up the phone and really say to them, look, how do you know them? And this is why I want to get into a conversation with them. Could you please introduce us? And I don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable, but half the time they'll be like, oh, that's my auntie's brothers, sisters. It's, if you take this principle of being connected with everyone I'm more than happy when people contact me and say, who do you know? But you can't see my second degree connections, unfortunately. But for most people, you can. They don't even know about that idea.
It's true that people can see when you've viewed your profile, right? I saw a viral TikTok the other day where someone had just figured out that was a thing, and they were like, oh my God, I've stalked the same person 300 times in a day. So that is a thing. Yes,
it's a thing. And old boyfriends, if we want to talk about the mistakes people make, the number of people that know they have old boyfriends and girlfriends looking them up weekly, it's like, change your settings. So interestingly, about 60% of LinkedIn users globally flick their LinkedIn profile viewing settings into anonymous. So what that means is, if you've got a free account and you want to have a look at who's been looking at your profile, you can actually only see the last 5 people. But if one of those last 5 people didn't have their settings clicked to anonymous, you can see exactly who's looking at you. And apart from the stalky element of that, I love it as a conversation starter. So if it's a first degree connection, I will actually message them, depending on who it is. Like, half the time I'll know why they're looking at me, but I've just had a conversation with them, or I will actually send them a message and say, I see you're looking at my profile, how are things going with you? Or if it's a second degree connection that's in potential client, or if it's a particular industry I'm interested in, I will actually send them a personalised invitation to connect and say, LinkedIn tells me you're recently looking at my profile. Now, I have to say, I don't have a great hit rate with people accepting, because probably half of them go, oh my goodness.
Panic, she's onto me.
She's onto me. She knows I'm looking. They say nothing. But the ones that do accept say, oh yeah, I got your details from, or I see that your skill set's this, and I hope I could have a conversation about this. So really, there's a lot of data related to your LinkedIn profile, whether it be your analytics or who's been looking at your profile. And analytics are number of profile views, number of times you've come up in searches, if you've chosen to post, which we haven't talked about. So you can go into visibility, privacy settings on the top right-hand side of your profile, visibility, and you can choose to be completely visible, which means you can see who's looking at you and they can see if you're looking at them. But use that to your advantage, right? Think strategically about that. Go onto Facebook if it's old flames. Maybe not LinkedIn is the place for that. But really use that strategically. And there's 2 other options. One is it'll tell you sort of title and industry, and I don't recommend you choose that option because it's really easy to work out who you are, or completely anonymous. So
hey job hunters, big news. Our all new course, Interview Academy, is live and ready to transform your interview game. It's all the strategies from Sarah's one-on-one coaching, but without the limited time slots.
Yep, it takes you step by step through crafting your career story, coming up with your awesome best bits, and all the practice you need.
And guess what?
It's at a special launch price, never to be seen again. Get more information at interviewboss.com.au/interview-academy. It's linked in the show notes below.
Emma, let's just say you've set up your LinkedIn profile and you're like, how am I going to write this? So, of course, the first thing you do is go to my blog and read all my very helpful articles. But what you could also do is have a look at people who you would, I always have this kind of 10-year measure. Who's 10 years ahead of me in my career? What does their profile look like? And so for me, that's looking at people who are starting to take on board roles and are sort of doing not-for-profit or pro bono work, things like that. So for Emma, you could look at, well, who do I want to be in 10 years? What sort of role do I want to be in 10 years? And you can look at the way they've written their profile, but do that in anonymous mode before you've written your profile. And I'm not suggesting for a minute that you should copy people's profiles, but this cultivation of voice. For me, when I sort of shared my story with you and I think about how I write my profile, I've spent a lot of time in anonymous mode in the early days of my business, looking at a whole lot of profiles to kind of go, oh, I like that. Oh, I don't like that. What's my version of that? How would I describe that? So I'm not advocating cut and paste other people's profiles. I'm just saying seek comfort in the safety of other people's words. And then that will really help your subconscious go, okay, probably do it right at the next morning. This is how I'm going to write myself. And if you're anything like me, that stuff wakes me up at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's like, ding.
Yep. Here's the idea. It's time to go.
Notebook next to the bed.
You never get to see anyone else's resume. I mean, unless you're in a manager role or, as a recruiter. So this is your opportunity to see, how do other people...
It's good to have a squiz.
Yeah, how do other people talk about their experience?
I love that. Have a squiz. That's so Australian. I haven't used the word squiz for ages. I'm writing that down.
Add that back to your vocabulary.
I love that. Have a squiz. I just love that. And I think I want to make a really important point about not looking at your resumes. Yes, Sarah, that is correct, because you should tailor your resume for every opportunity. So can everyone be really careful of the build a resume option on your LinkedIn profile? Please don't. Please don't use LinkedIn to build a resume. Please have a master resume. And I know you guys are going to talk about this and have talked about it, but they're completely different. A LinkedIn profile and a resume are completely different job search tools. I've heard people say, oh yeah, just PDF your LinkedIn profile, or just get a master copy of your resume and put it into PDF and put it in the featured section of your LinkedIn profile. No, please do not do that. Your resume needs to be tailored to every opportunity, and they're written differently. So please don't get a cut and paste of your last 2 roles, position description and achievements, and drop it into the experience section. Please inject some story into the way you write your LinkedIn profile. Give me a sense of, in the experience, why you chose that opportunity. What was the breadth and scope of your role? What were some key achievements? So key achievement statements are probably a little bit similar, but the rest should be written really differently. And don't attach your resume.
No, I completely agree with that. They're 2 different things. And sometimes some jobs will allow you to just apply with your LinkedIn profile and you don't need a resume, and LinkedIn likes to pretend that they are the digital resume. It's not the same.
It's not.
No.
It's not. Don't believe the hype.
And on the recruiter side, it looks kind of lazy. Like, you didn't even write your resume. You just, oh yeah, my profile, that'll do.
Yeah, which means you're not even going to get a look in.
Yeah.
You're not setting yourself up for success. So the fundamental difference is your LinkedIn profile is you as an individual. Probably what the recruiter will do is you'll get through, because you've done a beautiful mastered resume and a cover letter that's keyword optimized and completely talking to the recruiter and making their life so easy to get onto the I want to talk to you pile. And at that point, they will look at your LinkedIn profile for and probably your socials, but let's just talk about LinkedIn, the evidence to say, is this a consistent story? Is this person, all of the things that they say they are? And, do we have any mutual connections? So we instantly know that Sarah's going to be looking at you and saying, I can see that person's connected to, I'm going to ring that person and ask them what they're like. And coming back to sort of the benefits of LinkedIn, I think if you're a job seeker, you want to have control over your online identity. So lock down, or if you're an active job search, lock down all your privacy settings on all the other platforms. And I know you've dedicated a whole episode to this, and really let LinkedIn do its work as a massive platform that has, so Google searches, right? I want everyone to go to their local library or go into incognito mode on their laptop and type their name in and see what comes up. And in an ideal world, it's your LinkedIn profile, because you've filled in all the details. It's very well optimized, which just means you've filled in all the key information. And so that's what people see when they look you up online, not other things that would make you less employable. I don't want to list what those things are, because you're not going to be doing that. You're going to be using your LinkedIn profile to control the information, because you need to be in this modern world. I'm sure, I imagine some people have watched The Social Dilemma. You really need to be in control of your digital, as much as you can be in control of your digital presence.
Okay. We touched on before that we hadn't spoken about it yet, but what kind of content should you post on LinkedIn? Because posting content is a way to boost the profile, make you more relevant. What kind of things do you want to see?
I think there's two types of posting, and I do talk about this in the context of networking too. I think there's passive posting and there's active posting. So, and that applies to networking as well. So the passive posting is taken my advice, you set up your profile, it's talking to what you want to be known for and the people you're trying to influence, so it's a well-written profile. You've then curated your newsfeed. So the first step with posting is to really, the activity could be liking, commenting, sharing. So we haven't created any of our own content at this point. We're just seeing authoritative articles, interesting updates that are completely consistent with how we want to show up as a professional on LinkedIn. And that alone can be all people do on posting, because depending on your public profile settings, people can actually look at your profile even when they're not connected to you. I can actually look at your profile and I recommend complete public profile visibility even without being logged into LinkedIn, and I can view your activity. So one of the first things people will do if they're checking you out on LinkedIn for a variety of reasons, and we've gone through what those reasons might be, is click on activity, bless you, and have a look at what you might be liking. So I think that people will look at your activity. So you want to sort of think about, one of the common mistakes people do is to engage with rants and inappropriate behaviour on LinkedIn. And don't you hate it with? And yeah, so you want to be really careful from a professional perspective of what you like and comment on, and not engaging in rants. So that's sort of the passive posting that I know you're not actually posting, but by commenting, every time you comment, engage with any content. So engaging means you can have 6 different reactions on LinkedIn. You can like, you can love, you can find it insightful, you can find it curious, there's all these different reactions. Have fun with that. Or you can comment, which means if you've reacted or you've commented, it comes up in your newsfeed and people they associate your name with that comment. So there's a concept in marketing, here we go, using my previous training, of brand osmosis, right? So the things that I associate myself with, the topics that I talk about, by default, they kind of rub off on me. So if we're always sort of complaining about our premiers and our leaders of our country, how is that going to reflect on you professionally? Not well. However, if you're sharing innovative solutions or liking and commenting on things that are consistent with where you're heading in your career, then that's going to serve you really well. And it's going to tell a potential stakeholder, whether that be an employer or whoever, what you're like as a professional. So you need to be quite strategic. So the active posting, I want people to be really careful with that. So unless you're really trying to establish thought leadership and you're choosing to publish LinkedIn articles and you're a lover of the written word and good at writing, or you're a good videographer, be careful with posting and think carefully about sharing content that's adding value to your community. So you can create polls, you can create events, you can just post text updates. There's this real theme post-COVID of people demonstrating vulnerability on LinkedIn and showing their pre-LinkedIn profile photo of looking very pre-COVID LinkedIn photo of looking very slick and corporate, and their post-COVID photo of leisure outfit and wet hair. I mean, it's still a professional networking platform, right? So think carefully about what you post. So here's some examples of what you could post. You go to a conference, you go to a professional development event, you're at a Zoom event, online event. You would share, thank you to mention, so mention the people who led or facilitated the community or that particular conference, and say what you enjoyed about it. Or 6 or 12 months into your podcast and you decide to share, here are the 6 things you might write a LinkedIn article, Emma. Here are the 6 things I learned about running a podcast with my sister. and how our middle sister feels about the fact that she wasn't invited, But, so you've really got to think about, what do I want to be known for? Who am I trying to influence? How is the content that I post reflecting that? How am I adding value to the communities who I serve? So you might choose to do a LinkedIn article once a quarter, once a month. You could add it in the featured section. If you're in active job search, I would be very, very careful with that step. If you blog, it would make lots of sense for you to do that. If you vlog, it would make lots of sense for you to apply for LinkedIn Live and stream live from your profile. So it just depends. The posting, I like people to be cautious though, not to sort of go, oh, I've got to post something on LinkedIn this week. It's not Instagram. It's your professional self, and it's a footprint that will be there in the future.
Yeah, and I've also noticed as well with the posts that I've done that they're not quite the same as other social platforms like Facebook or Instagram. They don't disappear off the feed after a day.
Yeah.
You might get a week and a half, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later someone commenting on that post that you put up. So I think it's definitely quality versus quantity on LinkedIn is what I've found.
Absolutely, and that's where you need to tread carefully. I mean, I've got 2 particular articles that I wrote back in, one was in 2017, one was in 2019. Now, one is how to browse LinkedIn profiles anonymously, Emma, and I've chosen this great picture of 3 guys in a suit, and they've got this sort of Japanese mask on, and so I think the visual is really compelling. And I also think the title of the article is heavily Googled. So what's happening is people are Googling how to browse LinkedIn profiles anonymously, and then my LinkedIn article is actually coming up. And so every single week since 2017, I've had 2 comments this week. People will comment and ask me something about, they'll just come in because they'll go, oh, LinkedIn expert, she's written an article on it, I can see 350 comments, I'm going to ask another comment. So people just use it like LinkedIn help desk. I'm going to ask a question about it. So I've also got another one, how to mention people and organisations in a LinkedIn, in the comments and in a LinkedIn update. That's something that people Google a lot. Posts are not as searchable on the internet, but LinkedIn articles are quite searchable. So, and you can also use that to your advantage, which I do, but I'm not in active job search. So you need to be really careful with that element. And I just think, take the philosophy of engage meaningfully, share valuable insights and updates. If you love an article, share the link, tell people why you loved it. Like just, share information that you think is genuinely going to help people. If you see people in their update share something, cheer them from the sidelines, congratulate them. Let them know that you're engaging with their content and that you think they're fabulous. I mean, there is nothing wrong with coming from a place of being positive, encouraging and collaborative. I think that will serve anyone's personal brand really well on LinkedIn, which is why I really like the idea of this sort of passive posting, right off the back of other conversations, get into conversations with other people, share your opinion, give a perspective. I don't want people to feel pressure to post. You can, but there's lots of other things you can do.
Yeah, that's so true. So what is one of the most common reasons that you find that people come to Think Bespoke for their help with their profile or in their kind of networking profile building process?
Well, often it's people want to understand how to write their profile properly. So they're either moving into active job search or they're thinking about their next career move. So LinkedIn profile updates are something that we're known for and we've done since way back when I first wrote resumes, and then I moved into writing LinkedIn profiles. The second one is really the how to network on LinkedIn and that sort of networking etiquette. So we heard Emma talk about, she had this sort of block around the profile, which I think we've resolved tonight, Emma, for people who have the profile and want to play, like they want to have more presence on LinkedIn, but they're not really sure where to start. It's that sort of, Karen, can you just hold my hand and help me work out my game plan for LinkedIn? So that might be people who they have a point of view or they want to sort of progress within their career, and they want some of my clients get told by organisations, you're not active enough on LinkedIn. So that's certainly from senior leaders. I've got a client who's sort of now moving into board roles, and she's in a previous role, she was told you are not allowed to really have an online presence in the role that she's just moved into because she's in a customer-facing role. It's really expected of her that she will engage online. And I think it's sort of for more methodical, careful, deeper thinkers, and maybe don't have as extroverted behaviours, but that sounds a bit anti-extrovert. I think extroverts can be methodical as well, that are a little bit cautious and just, Karen, show me how to do LinkedIn properly. Show me how to navigate it in a way that I'm not alienating my community, I'm not looking up the wrong people, I'm using the right manners really, and I'm adding value and getting value from it as well.
Awesome. And can you tell us about a success story of you or like a client or someone you know where an amazing opportunity came out of networking on LinkedIn? Is there just a lovely little story?
Well, I have two. So one is a gentleman who, sorry, it's just funny because I've thought about what happened. So I had this thing come up that said, this gentleman has been celebrating 15 years at a particular company. And I sent him a message and said, are we celebrating or are we commiserating? Like 15 years, and I know him well, right? So it's an example of using notifications to start a conversation. And he said, look, actually, Karen, I'm so glad you've messaged me. Yes, we need to get my LinkedIn profile sorted. So we went down the path of really being clear about what did he want to be known for, who was he trying to influence, and he was moving out of a mainstream event business and wanted to run events in councils. So we updated his profile, and then he went through the process of, what do I do? And he started to just reach out to connections and say, hi, how you going? And so in the process of doing that, he got invited into an interview process with the local council and secured his job. So he didn't have to go down this. Yeah, it was a great story because he hadn't tended to his LinkedIn garden. He hadn't really taken it seriously, and he hadn't leveraged his network. So, and they're the basics. Like, that's not a sophisticated job search. That's I'm going to fix my profile and then I'm going to reach out to the people that I know. And I think, Sarah, that'd probably be your experience too, that you can, there's this concept of the hidden job market. So there's this idea that you can get opportunities created for you through your network. And that's why it's really important your profile's written to your goals and that you are conversational in your approach, because he could have just turned around and said, oh yeah, I'm great, everything's fine. But he took the opportunity to say, look, actually, Karen, and, lots of conversations can be started like that. I know the first thing Emma's going to do is write her profile. She's going to send me an invitation to connect, say, Karen, you know how you said you're going to invite me into opportunities? These are the specific opportunities that I'd like to be invited into. And I welcome that because that's just using LinkedIn well. So I think it's really using LinkedIn to your advantage, thinking about why you want to use it, and then being active on it each and like every other day to kind of go, well, what's the information that's being presented to me? What does that mean in terms of a conversation starter? Because in the context of this crazy world we're living in at the moment, where in real life events are happening. I did go to a businesswomen's lunch the other day. It was fabulous, but we are spending more time online. And so LinkedIn's a way for you to stay meaningfully connected to people who you either know or would like to get into a conversation with for, potential opportunities.
Yeah. On the flip side of that, do you have any LinkedIn horror stories for us? And you alluded to the Tinder thing before, but maybe you've got a different example.
Horror stories. Well, I had one guy. I really don't like salesy behaviour. And anytime you try to sell to me directly, it's a bit inappropriate, but there needs to be some foreplay, right? There needs to be a building of relationship before you start to try to sell to me. So there was this particular guy that sent me an invitation to connect, and maybe I broke my own rule about connection criteria, and I thought, we're on the side of openness, and I accepted it, and bang, within 24 hours, this very transactional email came through. And these were in the days where I sort of wanted to fight the good fight. I still want to fight the good fight. I just fight it a little bit differently now. Sent me this detailed sort of salesy thing, and I noticed a typo in it. So I sent, he doesn't love a good typo for feedback. I know, we're saying you can relate to this.
Live for this.
A nerd at my heart, and I celebrate that fact. So I sent him an email back, and I sent him a message back and said, thanks for trying to sell directly to me on LinkedIn. I want to ask you a question. What's your conversion rate like with these sorts of messages? And by the way, there's a typo in your message down below. So he sends me, and I was nice in the way I said it. However, we're already in a slightly confrontational situation because he's, hello, who speaks to, it's like if I met you in real life event and didn't know you and handed you a brochure and said, I really think you need my LinkedIn profile update services. Here, take it. Like, that is just rude. It is bad behavior. It's not correct business etiquette. So his response was hilarious. He messaged me back and said, this is my conversion rate, which for me, compared to my conversion rate with the way I do things, was really low. And, I don't think my services are suited for small-minded people like you. And I just went, thank you. You've just revealed yourself to me as I revealed myself to him. Like, he knew where I was coming from. And so, didn't do anything else, probably unfollowed him, didn't block him because I thought, are we having fun yet? Like, this is really fun. And then about 6 weeks later, I got exactly the same message. So obviously, and everyone needs to be aware of this, there's a whole lot of services out there that are either plugging in via third-party apps to people's profiles and sending automated messages. And so there's two problems with this. The first part is that it's bad business and bad sort of relationship building. The second part is that you can, with certain behaviours related to those apps and third-party plugins, which contravenes the LinkedIn user agreement, you can get put into LinkedIn jail. So you've got to be very, very careful with that conduct.
The sales behaviour, I've seen so much of it. And my favourite was always when someone would try and use a connection request with someone important and use that as an excuse to email you. We would constantly get people saying, well, I've been speaking to your CEO, when what they actually meant was that they sent them a connection request. And the trickery kind of stuff doesn't work. I think be authentic on the platform.
Absolutely. And it's just icky, right? And for that reason, I've locked down my privacy settings because and so I'm open to connecting, but once you're connected with me, you can't see my email because the number of people that put me onto an email list because I was a connection and they just thought, well, I'm going to export all of my list, or sent those sorts of messages and could see my mutual connections. They just can't do that now. And I've also clicked my profile over to follow, so it's difficult to send me an invitation to connect. But I'm a totally different ballgame. It's because of the type of person that I am and my LinkedIn expertise. But I guess my point to anyone listening is take control of your privacy settings and think about what sort of user experience that you want to have on LinkedIn, and be confident in having that LinkedIn user experience. Make sure it's a tool that helps you, not a tool that makes you accessible for salespeople.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Karen. This has been an awesome conversation. So on that note of your profile, where can people find out more about you and your business and your services?
So you can check us out. I assume you'll put this in the show notes, but Think Bespoke, my website. Come and say hi. There's a blog there that I write about dedicated category to LinkedIn profile. Check out the resources page. I've got some free downloads, especially the LinkedIn profile checklist. I might give you the details of that so people can just say, I know she went through the things that I need to consider, but have a look at the LinkedIn profile checklist. And of course, anyone that's listening that wants to have a conversation about LinkedIn, please invite me to connect. You might be able to work out how to do it, or follow me on LinkedIn. And you can also find me on Instagram, and you'll meet my cat called Archie, who has a whole highlight. Yeah, Archie the cat.
I love cats.
Well, he went walkabout recently because we just got a dog and he wasn't very happy about that. And as
Archie.
I'll tell you what, as my vet nurse said to me, dogs will forgive you, Karen, but cats won't.
Cats won't, no. They remember.
So if you're not super confident on LinkedIn yet, but you do want to say hi, you can also find me on Instagram, which is @Think Bespoke. Happy to be reached out to on LinkedIn or Instagram.
And I guess that wraps us up for today. We've had a huge conversation about all things LinkedIn. I hope anyone out there who is considering making a profile, you're jumping on tonight, you're creating it, you're taking all the tips that we've gone through today, including getting that LinkedIn checklist. That sounds like an awesome resource. So thanks very much, Karen, for joining us.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me, ladies. I've really enjoyed it.
Thanks so much for listening to Interview Boss. If you want to hear more from us, make sure you hit subscribe. We're a new podcast, so if you liked this episode, we'd really appreciate it if you could give us a review so we can help even more people. For more advice, inspiration, and a supportive community, join us in the Interview Boss Facebook group.
If we've been your job search besties and helped you in some way, there's a cool way you can support the show. Shout us a virtual coffee.
We get a huge kick out of reading all of your success stories. Head to buymeacoffee.com/interviewboss and shout us a cuppa.
If you keep us caffeinated, we can keep the content coming.